Hello, this is Mike Schmitz for Asian Efficiency, and this week I want to show you how to use a phenomenal little iOS app called Drafts. This is the third part in a 4-part series on Quick Capture. In the first part of this series, we talked about the importance of Quick Capture and how it relates to the GTD methodology. In part 2, I showed you how to Quick Capture on your Mac using NVAlt. In this post, I want to show you how to Quick Capture on your iOS device using Drafts. This is the most important part of my Quick Capture workflow because many times I can't wait until I get back to my Mac to write something down. If I put it off, there's a good chance I'll forget about it completely. If I'm not at my Mac and I need to remember something, I make sure to immediately write it down, Quick Capture it. And the way I do that is with an application called Drafts. Drafts is an app from Agile Tortoise that makes Quick Capture on iOS easy because of its ability to quickly export your data from Drafts into pretty much any other application you want. Their tagline is Drafts, where text starts on iOS, and this really has proven true for me. Anytime I want to remember or write something, the first thing I do is open Drafts. It has permanently earned a place on my dock because I use it that much. Anytime I want to remember something, Drafts. Anytime I want to quickly write something down, Drafts. Anytime I want to send text to someone, Drafts. Anytime I want to post to social media, Drafts. And so on. The possibilities really are endless. For example, have you ever started typing out a text message and then realized that it was getting way too long to be a text message and would really be better as an email instead? To get your message out of the Messages app and into your email application can be frustrating in iOS and is cumbersome at best. You have to first select and copy all the text you want, then open the application you want to put your text into, and paste that text into that application, all using your index finger, which can be quite difficult on a smaller iPhone screen. With Drafts, you can put down your message first and then easily export to whatever application you want. You can even send it to multiple applications, which is useful when posting to your social media accounts. Drafts allows you to quickly capture text and output it almost anywhere, so you don't have to decide folders or file names before you get your thought on the paper and off the mind. As we talked about in part 1 of this series, it's important that we eliminate as much resistance or friction as we can when it comes to capturing. If we can defer making any judgments on our text or information until we sit down to process it, that's ideal. Fortunately, Drafts makes it incredibly easy to quick capture our information. When you first open Drafts, you're presented with a blank draft. Just open Drafts and start typing. If you're not sure what to do with your text, you can leave Drafts without saving. It will be saved automatically for you. Drafts has a history feature where the most current drafts are sent to the top of the list, just like a stack of papers. You can access your drafts by swiping from the left side of the screen on the iPad or by pressing the magnifying glass icon on the iPhone, which will open up the search window. There are 4 different tabs available in the search window in Drafts. First is the inbox. This is where your drafts go by default. Your drafts inbox should be processed regularly just like any other inbox, email, OmniFocus, etc. Second is archive. Once you're done with a draft, you've sent it somewhere using an export action, you should archive it and get it out of your inbox. Third is pinned. This is where your pinned drafts go. You can pin a draft to set it aside to deal with it later or mark it as important. Fourth is all. This shows all your drafts, no matter what state they happen to be in. On the iPhone, there's also a gear icon, which will take you to the app settings. If you want to process a draft, you can either swipe on the draft from right to left to delete, or from left to right to archive or pin. If you press on the draft itself, it will open that draft. From here, you can edit this draft and then send it just about anywhere using an export action. To access the export actions, press the Export button and the Export Actions menu will appear. This allows you to send your text to just about any other iOS application. There are 4 tabs that you can assign export actions to. By default, several export actions are pre-populated for you under the first tab, including Twitter, Facebook, Evernote, email, messages, and more. What makes drafts really useful, though, is the ability to create your own export actions. You can do this under the Settings menu, the gear icon. I'll actually show you how to set up a custom export action in part 4 of this series next week. Once you press the export action you want to use, Drafts will open the appropriate application and send your text there automatically. If you want to export it somewhere else also, just select another export action. It's that simple. Drafts will show a green checkmark icon next to each export action that's been used with this particular draft. These export actions may not seem like a big deal, but trust me, they are. Use them for a while and you'll soon wonder how you ever manage text on iOS without them. I can't overemphasize how incredibly awesome export actions are. Once you develop the habit of starting all your text generation on iOS in drafts, this will save you a ton of time. That's the basic idea of how to use drafts, but there are a couple other tips I'd like to show you for adapting drafts to fit into your workflow and make it even more useful. Pro tip number 1, limit the number of export actions you see. Drafts has a ton of export actions and has a lot of them available right out of the box. If you're unfamiliar with drafts, though, you can look at that long list of export actions and easily be overwhelmed by all the options. Most of these you'll never use, so I recommend going into the settings and hiding all the actions you won't use. At the very least, move them off the first page. Remember, Draft supports 4 pages of export actions. You really only want to see the actions you use frequently on the first page. To do this, press the Export icon, then press the Settings icon, scroll down until you find Manage Actions, and then select the action you want to move. Once you select the action, you can select a different action pane that you want this action to be moved to. You can select any of the 4 action panes that exist in drafts, or you can select Hide, which will move it to the hidden pane. Organizing your export actions like this doesn't seem like a big thing, but remember that removing every possible source of friction when quick capturing in your workflow is very important. Pro tip number 2, customize your export actions. Drafts has a lot of export actions that it supports out of the box, but there's actually a directory of export actions that you can add to drafts. You can access this site by clicking the Settings icon and selecting Visit the Action Directory. If you launch drafts and your favorite app doesn't seem to be supported, check this directory. There are hundreds of export actions available here that you can install just by clicking the Install link on your iOS device. The number of applications that Drafts integrates with is astounding. It does this by supporting URL schemes. These can be used in conjunction with apps like Launch Center Pro to automate just about anything on your iPhone or iPad. It's a bit technical and not the focus of this series of articles, but it would be doing Drafts a disservice not to mention this feature. This flexibility allows Drafts to be adapted into pretty much any iOS workflow. Pro tip number 3, use badges to show unprocessed drafts. Fundamentally, drafts is an inbox and you need to process it as such. Quick capturing information doesn't do you any good if you never take the time to follow up with it and process the information. We discussed the 5 steps of the getting things done methodology and how quick capture fits into that process in part 1 of this series. By turning on the Show Inbox Count as Badge setting, you'll know when you have items in your drafts inbox that need to be processed without even opening the app. Pro tip number 4, put it in your dock. This is a general tip for any new app that you are considering adding to your workflow. The best way to see if something sticks is to put it on your dock and see if you actually use it. If you put it in your dock and you still don't find yourself using it after a while, that's okay. There is no single correct workflow. Don't be afraid to try something and say, it's just not for me. But if you're reading this post, You are probably someone who is looking to improve how you do things, and there's a good chance you'll love Drafts. So why not put it in your dock and try it out for a while? So that's how I use Drafts on iOS for quick capturing information. In part 4 of this series, I'll show you how to set up Dropbox actions in Drafts that can send your text to NVAlt on your Mac. So be sure to tune in next week.